Congratulations, you've made it! I'm Travis Wright-Colopy, Executive Director of FitEnable Productions, and I want to welcome you to Part 12, the final episode of the Tummy to Tux series. Over the past 12 weeks, we have been working hard to achieve the goal that we set for ourselves so long ago. And if you've been doing the work, or substantially doing the work, you should have achieved your goal if you set something that was reasonable and actually possible to do within that time period. Or you got very, very close. Hopefully, along the way, you didn't give up. You didn't say, I can't do this, and you didn't go back to whatever you were doing before that was not getting you closer to the things you want out of life. Even if you didn't achieve the goal that you had set for yourself in the fullest way possible, if you got really close, that's awesome too, and it's worth celebrating. And this is what this episode is about. It is the celebration. Congratulations, you did it. You did something that was amazing, and you did something that a lot of people will never do, which is figure out what they want for themselves in life and get after it. Congratulations. This is something you can be proud of yourself about, and that a lot of other people in your life are no doubt proud of you for doing as well. Take the day, celebrate a little bit. Whatever your goal might have been, I'm sure there's an appropriate way to celebrate it. If you were going for a race, you should now have crossed that finish line as well. Perhaps you got your time. You can see how well you did if you hit your marks. If you're going after a weight loss goal, you can step on that scale and see exactly how far you have come from when you first stepped on the scale 3 months ago. If you're doing a work goal, maybe you got that promotion or you got that big project that has been on your to-do list completed, and now you're reaping the benefits of whatever that will have brought you. Whatever your goal was, there's some way to celebrate it, and today is the day for it. But that doesn't mean the work is over. When it comes to self-improvement, that is a never-ending process. Every day is a new day to either move forward, stay still, or move backward. One of those is okay, one of those is bad, and one of those is really great for you. So every day when you get up, like every day that for the past 12 weeks, you got to decide what you're going to do and which direction you're going to go. Once your celebration is done, and I hope you had a fantastic time with whatever you did to celebrate, it's time to reflect, evaluate, and start planning your next steps. And we've talked about this before after the first phase and in previous videos, because now that you have a lot more experience under your belt with the training or whatever work you had to do to advance towards your goal, and more importantly, you have a lot more recent experience about what it takes to achieve a goal, whatever that might be, you can now apply that towards future goals, which you should be thinking about and starting to plan out now. And very soon, start working on it. You don't want to just have like a one and done mentality. It's like, I got this goal done now, I'm good for the rest of my life. No, you can take a little bit of a break, rest, recover, and recuperate, but start looking ahead to the future. There's got to be something else out there that you want to do. Maybe even if you did a fantastic job with perhaps say setting a race goal that you wanted to complete your 10K in a specific time. Well, you know what? I bet that's not going to be your last 10K. And the next one you do, you're going to want to do even faster. You may want to move up in your age group rankings, even maybe go for an overall win. There's always going to be something you can do to go further with that goal. Perhaps you achieve that goal and you want to set something that's completely different. Say you got your 10K goal in, now you want to gun for a half marathon or a full marathon. Obviously, those are related, but we all know trying to run a full marathon is a vastly different experience than trying to do a 10K. The commitment and time, effort, and energy to train for that, not to mention on race day, the endurance of getting from that start line to that finish line with a whole lot of steps in between, is going to take a lot more work, both mentally and physically, to achieve. Similarly, say you did that 10K and you're like, all right, I'm good with running. I want to do something else. And you pick up another sport. Perhaps it's CrossFit and you want to go do some local CrossFit games, but you've never picked up a barbell in your life. Well, great. It's a similar physical activity. You know that it's going to be really uncomfortable. You're going to really be sore a lot of days, but you know the first day you pick up that barbell, it's going to be heavier than anything you've ever lifted before. It's going to be tough. You're probably going to have the smallest plates on the bar standing next to some guys and girls who are just absolutely shredded and throwing up some big weight. But give it a few months, you're going to be in shape too, And perhaps one day you'll get to those local CrossFit games or even the big ones and start knocking out some big wins there. Although that is a very different activity to be doing, what you do know is that you yourself can do it. You know that it's possible to go from something where you have no experience and you're at square one, but you know you have it within you to get through it and all the way to that finish line or that podium. The main point is enjoy your accomplishment, but don't rest on your laurels. Start finding the next thing. If you are doing a similar goal, you can look at your training plan and see what you need to modify. Now that you have a full training progression under your belt, you can go back and look and see what did or did not work at each state progression of the plan. Where you have your introductory phase, your middle phase where you escalate it, and then a final phase where you escalate it some more, and then finally push on through to the finish line. You know the steps involved with each of those, and you really know what actually helped you get to the finish line and what didn't, what kind of things held you back, or what you can do more now that you have some more experience. If you need the help now that you want to take it to another level, as we've said before, you can always find a coach to help you do that for you, who can help you develop that more advanced training plan to get you from that 10K, say, to the marathon. You want to take a look back at the past 12 weeks or whatever period you've been working on this goal, and while it's still fresh in your mind, start thinking about it and going over it now, and start planning for the future if that is going to roll over and to something you're going to be doing again. While it's still fresh in your mind, you can think objectively about it, and you don't want to have to put a big gap and then think, well, what did I do back then? Well, I forget. We all know how that works. It's better to do it now while you're fresh, energized, and psyched about what you did, and can start laying the groundwork for your next goal. Second, you want to give yourself a little bit of a break. You have just put in a whole lot of time, effort, and energy into achieving this amazing thing for yourself. That will wear on you. If you just finished a race, you need to give yourself a few days to rest, which might include just active rest where you're doing some very lightweight activity just to keep your body moving, but you can't really roll from one marathon right into the next marathon. You can't roll from like one huge project at work right into the next one. You're just going to burn out. And if you do that, your performance on the second activity is just going to suffer. Plus, your enjoyment of it is going to suffer too, because it's just going to feel like more of the same and it's going to suck. You want to be fully rested so you can go into your next project fully energized and excited about it. You don't want to be dreading it like it's just, all right, well, tomorrow's Monday, I guess, back to the grind. You don't want to go into that because you're very likely just setting yourself up to drop out at some point. Going back to the example of doing like marathon training or some other really high-level athletic performance training, if you have a coach or if you're really experienced with developing your own training plans, your rest and recovery will actually be built into the 3-stage training progression. So you won't really have to think about having, okay, I've done the training, I've done the competition, and now I got to schedule in some rest. It'll already be part of your plan. And so no, today's the day, it's rest. I have a few weeks of active rest where I might be building back up again a little bit before I really get started training for the next progression in earnest. The final point, again, when you're trying to reflect on what you've just done and you start laying the groundwork for future plans for what you're going to do next, you have to keep in mind some of the things you had to think about way back when you're a novice just getting started. When you're setting a goal, even if you just accomplished something that you never thought you'd do before, you have to go through that process of laying out that goal. And remember that SMART goal template, where it's measurable, attainable, time-bound, and all those other aspects will actually help you set a goal that you can reasonably achieve. For example, if you just did your first 5K, and even if you set a great time, maybe running a marathon is not the next step. Do that 10K first, or maybe the half marathon, get that under your belt, and then jump to the marathon. Similarly, if you just ran a marathon, you don't want to go back. Perhaps running a 10K or a 5K isn't setting the next best goal. Unless, of course, you're changing something about how you're going to approach that shorter distance. As we all know, your race pacing for a 5K and a marathon, even if you're a top-level athlete, is very different. You can just watch how they do it. With a marathon, It's not necessarily slow and steady, but you can't just sprint it the entire way. You actually have to pace yourself, because it's a long way to go, and you don't want to get to mile 24 and just absolutely run out of gas. However, with a 5K, you can reasonably rip one of those out really fast, because you know it's not really that far. It might seem a lot if it's your first 5K, but if you've done a marathon, you know 3 miles really isn't that far, and you're going to have a lot more juice in your system to do it. Perhaps you can really set a really fantastic time. You know, if your mile time for the marathon was 7 or 8 minutes, say, whatever it might be, perhaps in a 5K, you really want to get that mile time down to 5 minutes or something. That would be a really good goal to set yourself, because it requires a very different type of training to get your body going from the long distance endurance to a very short, not quite sprint, but where you're really pushing yourself to go really hard and fast over a very short distance. Again, you want to set a goal that pushes yourself. It doesn't undersell you for what you've already achieved, because you don't want to move backwards. It's not standing still, where it's like, all right, well, I did this 10K at a certain pace, or I just lost the weight to this level. I'm just going to sit pretty here and just do this over and over and over again. Well, if you do that, one, you're going to get bored, and you're probably going to stop. And usually when that happens, when we stop doing something, we revert back to worse habits. They don't generally tend to get better. Plus, if you do something over and over and over again, your body adjusts, and the benefits of doing that begins to decrease. And you could start seeing yourself move back in some ways physically if you're not engaging your body in new and unique ways that continues to push it and to adapt, which is where we get our physical benefits from. Similarly, you don't want to set something that's so far out there you can't achieve it, or where you'll burn out and become disappointed and become likely to quit. So pick something that's reasonable. It must push you forward, but you don't want to do it so hard that you injure yourself or burn out. Now, finally, what happens if you did not achieve your goal in the time period you had set for yourself? Again, you got to reflect, evaluate, and start doing some planning. First off, how far did you get? If you only got halfway to your goal, there are a couple options. One, you set something that was so far out there that there's no way for you to have possibly achieved it in that time. Alternatively, you just didn't do the work, and that's a shame. You had all that time to do something fantastic for yourself, and to some extent, you squandered it. And at that point, you need to ask yourself, why did you do that? Or better question, why didn't you do what you should have been doing in that time? As we've talked about in a lot of these videos, a lot of what holds us back is just what's up in our own head. And that can really bog us down and hold us back from doing the things in life we want. If you got substantially all the way to your goal, say 75, 80, maybe even 90% of the way there, that's awesome too. Yeah, you don't get that full satisfaction of achieving the goal you set for yourself, but you're not disappointed with yourself so much for being lazy and not doing the work. And if you got that kind of progress, there's probably some reason in there that might have been external to you for why it didn't happen. Perhaps life just threw something at you that prevented you from going all the way. Perhaps you got an injury and were laid up for a few weeks, and so when you finally got to your race or whatever you're working for, you weren't able to push yourself as hard on race day, and you didn't quite get your time, but you got fairly close, and more importantly, you were faster than the last time you ran that race. Or you set yourself a goal to lose 20 pounds and you only lost 15. Well, you know what? 15 pounds is still a lot of weight. Go to a gym and pick one of those dumbbells up, and you'll see what you've taken off, and that's something to be proud of. Yeah, it's not the full amount, but that's still a lot, and you got really close, and those last 5 pounds are achievable when you get going again. Or maybe you just needed a little extra time, a couple more weeks, maybe an extra month, and you would have had that 20 pounds. So what do? You just keep working and you get to the 20 pounds. Or if you missed your time by a few seconds at a race, well, sign up for another race in the near future, keep your training going, and no doubt by that next race, you'll hit it. Maybe you just had a bad race day. Maybe the weather was bad, too cold, too hot, whatever, you didn't hydrate enough, or you just had a really bad night's sleep the night before and just something was off and you missed it by a few seconds. These things happen even to the best of athletes. Don't let it discourage you. Try again, and no doubt you'll get it. And then you can have your celebration. It might be a little later than you expected, but you know what? All that matters is that you got there and you can celebrate. And then you can go back to the start of this video, listen to all this again, and start the planning for your next goal at that time. It's all good. It just took you a little longer than you had expected or hoped. So what's next? Well, this is the last episode of the Tummy to Tuck series. I kind of feel like I'm going to want to refresh this at some point as more big events come up in the future. I'll get another chance to put on the black tie. As we already discussed, my reason for doing this year was canceled, although we're still going to be doing a fun little party to make up for it. But just like I said, where you reflect and evaluate and start planning for the future, I already know there's some things that I would have done different with this series now that I've done it and I have that experience under my belt. And I'd like to kind of give this another shot in the future and really do an awesome job that I think this series could have been if I knew at the start what I know now. Give it some time and I'll probably update this or do it in a slightly different way. But more importantly, what's my next goal? Well, now that travel's kind of opening up, I've had this goal of doing the Camino de Santiago trek across northern Spain for the past couple of years. Obviously, a few big things got in the way of that happening, but now next year it looks like it's something that's going to be possible, and I'm looking forward to doing that in May. And I'm going to do a series for that as well. Not only the preparation for it, but also while I'm on the trek as well. But that is my next big goal, and I hope you'll join me out with that series to see how that goes. Anyway, for the past 12 weeks, you've been tuning into the Tummy to Tuck series as we go from the initial stages of setting a goal all the way through the progression of working hard for it, and now we have finally achieved it. And I sincerely appreciate you joining me for that. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please like the channel, leave a comment below, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And please, if you know someone who might have benefited from this, now that we've completed the series, go ahead and send them the whole playlist so that they can go through it too, and maybe that will help them achieve something that they have wanted in life as well. As always, thank you for racing with Fit and Able.